It's right above the vendors section. You can't find it.
From experience with that company, Junior Library Guild is subscription based, where the library purchases a genre, for example, children's humor or historical fiction, and then based off of the research that they do, they send, it's just like I said, subscription based, so they send suggested titles, many of which often end up being, they have a whole research process on how that's selected too, and it's a very common, very well-established company. And then libraries, of course, do have that option to go in each month and reselect or deselect, depending on if they have those titles. So, pretty reputable company and very commonly used subscription service that I could say that all of Dickinson Public Schools subscribes to and uses their services. So that we don't get, when it's paid off as a genre or a group rather than specific titles.
Thank you for that insight. I'm also of the understanding, as far as from a price point, they're reinforced binding, library binding, versus just regular publishers. They tend to last a good long while and take the wear and tear of children's
And that's
reading.
probably your yearly subscription, I think is how it's usually invoiced.
You know what, I'm not really sure. I know we don't get, cannot answer.
Okay. Well, that ours are billed that way. Any other questions or discussions on the expense report? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for the approval.
I do have a quick question.
Yep.
Renee, do we know if like we're going to the website and I'm trying to think of the right word here. I'm trying to sound smart, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. So I'm not that smart.
I'll add it in. Don't worry.
But like, are we getting onto their website? I mean, this company that Mrs. Hall was talking about, and from time to time picking out the books that we would get from them.
From Junior Library?
Yeah.
That I would have to ask
Okay.
those that are ordering, and then there's 2 people for sure in the house that are using their services.
Yeah. I guess I would have some concern if we're just like blindly buying books that aren't gonna circulate.
Sure, no,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think it's an important concern that she raises, cause if we're spending
Absolutely, I
that
would
amount of
agree with
money,
that. Yep.
so, yeah.
I understand that concern as well. No, again, like Troy mentioned, President Kuntz mentioned, the staff has final approval as far as what's coming. I
Okay.
also know that, and I can't speak specifically, but I do know that when those grant funds were spent, there were some things that were back ordered, and we get those when they come in.
Right.
And that's how that goes too. So if that may have been some of those things, but.
I know that has the features. I mean, think of it like my home chef that just delivered today.
Yeah, like
Really want the good
like
meals, but to
subscription
make a point to
boxes
go
and stuff,
change it.
yeah.
Sometimes I
Yes.
forget and I get whatever they send me, but I agree with the amount of money spending. We want to make sure that it's what matches the goals in the purchasing that we're making, for sure. Entertain that motion again?
You're the first and second, right, that was just further discussion.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no one made the motion.
So, I thought we had one.
Nope.
I will motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the approval of expenditures, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no,
Nay.
and motion carries. All right, director's report.
Okay, I'm gonna go fast and furious.
All right,
Ask
we all
questions at the
appreciate
end.
it.
Update to the website to include the library board member terms has been completed. And as I'm sure you're all aware, the city commission accepted the board's recommendation for Ian Ampiano as the new library director. He will begin, February 20th. I have been, received from the North Dakota State Library the Excelling Library Award for 2022. This award was conveyed in August of 23. Excelling is the middle tier of the 3 levels that they provide awards for. So developing is the lower level, then excelling, and then future focused. And while I know some of our goals will be to strive as well as we can towards our future focused category or award, level of award recognition, there are a number of standards to follow to be considered as a future focused library. And one of those is that we don't have a public meeting room that is used for the public to use, is available for public use and reservation due to our lack of dedicated programming space. And it's just one of those ways in which I will plug the fact that we need a reno and expansion to accommodate, to continue to make improvements to achieve that level of future focus status. The Human Origins exhibit that we had through the Smithsonian ran in the month of January. We had 87 people come through that exhibit, lots of really good comments, I think, good conversation. I told you about our public use computers, all but one have been swapped out. There is additional funds on that line. The speakers in the community room are on their last legs, if you will. Learned that the speakers that were initially installed were PA speakers, probably not meant at all for the things we've been doing to them. So IT is working to get us replacement speakers that should be more effective. My concern with replacing them now before potential reno is whether or not we can remember to pull those in the event that walls get moved and things like that, so we're not just spending money to throw it away again and have to spend it again. Bookmobile RFP bid opening was on Monday. There were 2 bids submitted. Linda, Ms. Carlson, and I were both in attendance as the Director of Public Works opened those bids. He will go through the specs of each of those and bring his recommendation to the City Commissioners for approval. I do have a copy for each of you of the events calendar for March and April. You can see where we could really use another programming space because we're on top of each other with programs. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. We're bringing back Rough Readers in March. This is a program in which reluctant readers have the opportunity to sign up and they read with a therapy dog. Studies have been done just to see how much of an impact this makes on canine assistant reading programs and the impact they have on reading fluency and attitudes towards reading. Some kids become reluctant because they're embarrassed to read out loud. They get laughed at in school or teased or anything, right, because of the way they speak. With a dog to read to, there's not that negative connotation with their reading. So it's been well received in the past, and we're looking forward to having that opportunity again in the future. Also, I did notice their museum presentation regarding the new species of Tyrannosaur, so we are reaching out into the community and making partnerships with other groups just that bring good quality programming into the library. Finally, March 8th is our Cookies and Cocoa Social, which is our winter reading program wrap-up, and the prizes are awarded.
Couple quick questions for you, because I can't type quite that fast. The name of the award that we were awarded, what was that again?
That is the Excelling Library Award from the North Dakota State Library.
It's from the State Library today. Thank you. And you said the website had been updated to include the terms, yes?
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
yeah, I saw that, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Newton?
I have a quick question. This isn't about your report. Well, actually, I do have one question about the Rough Riders, which I think that's fantastic.
I can help you with that. Actually, the reason I haven't done anything because, since the commission approved that board members that have a commissioner on them are to be paid for their time to be on the board, and it went from, some boards did, some boards didn't, but we included all of them in the new resolution, and this was back in August, I believe. Anyway, it's come to our attention too that some board members do not want to be paid. But we never thought of that way. So right now, we're looking at what do we need to do to present to the commission to state, is this, they need to be paid, that we just pay them because of the resolution that was passed? Or do we look at an amendment to that that says, upon you signing a form that says, yes, you'll take payment, by filling out a W-9, so that we can do that. And a W-9 is that some of your question too, what a W-9 is? A W-9 is like, it is a vendor identification that says, Linda Carlson, do you do business as, and then what taxing ID number do you use? Is it a social security number? Is it an employee ID number? What is it? So that's what it is, and you sign that so that we can use that in our books to show that you are the person you say you are, and that we make that payment, and then at the end of the year, if anything is over $600 paid out, then we as the city have to send out a 1099 form that says you've received this amount of money for your services from this employee. Okay, so that's what it is. So I actually have a couple boards, members of other boards that have brought this attention to me, and then I knew about yours, but I have not done anything formally yet on this because I'm working with the attorney on, do we have to amend the resolution, or do we just approach, and if you don't want to fill out a W-9, we don't do it. So that's where it's at right now.
I just wasn't sure if something was happening in the past, or I was just so
No, this
confused
was
by the
what-
email, and I'm like, well, I don't even know what this is, and then, so I just wanted to open up that question of like, what
I
has
asked
been
very
going
similar
on?
questions because we weren't compensated in the past, and
Okay.
so I was like, whoa, wait.
I was just like,
I was like, Brian, did you ever get, no? Okay, just checking.
okay, thank you for that clarification. Is there any paper that is signed as a board member? Like,
Business paper?
no, okay.
No, the board members
That's
are
why I was
approved
just
by the
kind of funny
commission.
with the W-9, I'm like, this is quite official, and I haven't even signed, like, anything, so thank you for the clarification. So you will let us know what you find out?
Yep.
So-
And I should have that by this next meeting. I'll just have a lot of things coming, so.
Thank you, Ms. Carlson.
Thank you.
Anything else for our library director? Alright, under our unfinished business, we had board member Ho and Kopp had met a couple months ago now to draft a code of conduct. As part of the discussion at last month's meeting, we decided we wanted to take a little more time with it. And so now I just open the floor to discussion around the Dickinson Area Public Library Board members' code of conduct.
This is the same document that was presented last month, correct?
Yes.
Without changes?
Yes.
Okay, I would just ask that the changes that were discussed last month and kind of generally approved of be made. And no written minutes is on it.
Actually, I have to step in, I changed my mind on it.
Okay.
Striking the piece about not undermining the board, I actually think or the director, that should be in there after some discussions with residents.
I think the word I wanted struck was never undermining.
Right, but
Because that was the absolute language there, rather than like
violating our own policies. That's why it doesn't, the sentence has no purpose with that number.
I disagree.
No, but like, if we're gonna do a annual review, there might be things that we find, just like I said last month, there might be things that we find that could potentially undermine it could be perceived as undermining the authority of the director. And so like, that's a tough one for me, because like, never undermining, and if I'm gonna be signing a sheet of paper that says I'm gonna follow this, I wanna make sure it's something that I can actually follow. And, I think that's a very, undermining someone's authority could be a very subjective thing.
Well, and from what I understand is that the board in Century Code holds the responsibility to hire the director. So if we hold that responsibility to hire the director, which means you would hold the responsibility to fire the director, you have to, if you're not able to go in and approach them, if that's taken as someone undermining someone else, because we approach them with an issue, we won't ever be able to move. It paralyzes.
No, all it reads is that if it's their duties versus our duties as a board, that's what the undermine would be part of. If they're doing their job and we have suggestions or critiques, that's not undermining, it would be going in and saying, you have to go do this to the director, and it's not in our purview as the board to make that request. That would be undermining. Where if it was something we said, like, a good example would be, we got the Excels award this year and there's future focus. We could make the suggestion that as the board was like one of your goals next year to become future focused. Even though that's not something we can force, we can recommend, we can ask. So that's where that language comes from in what it's saying in the document.
So Marcus, I'd be interested in you elaborating a little more on your conversations with others.
It's just that doing our job as the board and things that in our purview is not undermining if we bring those up and contradict the director. So that's not undermining. But if, as board member Cobb said, if we step outside of our purview and start saying things, then that would be undermining, and that is outside of what we are supposed to be doing.
I can respect that perspective. Yeah. Yeah, so what you're saying is that in our role as the board, if we're reviewing regardless of whether someone perceives it as undermining, that doesn't mean it is. Yeah.
Correct, yeah, doing our job with respect to the director is not undermining the director, but doing something that is the director's job, that is not the
Could be
board's job,
undermining, yes, okay.
is undermining the director.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that would play into that is, the proposed new business, having maybe a potential committee meet in planning the director's annual review process. That's gonna more black and white, set out what is our job, what is their job, throughout all of that too. And I think that just connects into that statement. With the conversation being had, what are general thoughts on the words never undermining in that statement?
I don't like absolutes because I'm not a Sith, but yeah, I just struggle with the absolute there.
Would it be better if it said not instead of never?
Yeah, maybe working to not undermine the authority of the library director and that management.
Working to not undermine.
Yeah.
Board member Hurt, got it?
Yes.
Alright.
Okay. Sorry for the geek joke there, but
It's not just you, trust me.
There are other boards that would just go right over the heads.
Just for clarity's sake here, since I'm paranoid about the minutes now, we're changing, never to working to not undermine.
Correct.
Good.
Any other discussion?
I move we approve the changes.
Today's and the last mentioned, right, because we said we were still addressing some of the
Oh, okay.
changes from the previous minutes, correct? The reference list, I think, so we believe that. Just to clarify, was there more than just that change we discussed today?
Yeah, it's in their century code, will be added to vote 1/6 next vote to approve of that part. And then we just discussed the next part right now. So it would be to add the century code part in.
I have a question. So there was the issue of if we're gonna sign this or not. I think you brought that up at one point, Brian. My question is, we're sitting here, going through all of these things, and what happens if they're broken? And nobody has signed a paper, and what happens if we do sign a paper and they're broken? There's no policy surrounding, this code of conduct. And when I look in bylaws, really truly, the only mention of removal of a board member is if meetings are missed, but it doesn't even specify how that is to take place. So I kind of struggled with that in this, like, approving this, but then not
So,
having to uphold it. I don't know.
so the interesting thing is Robert's rules actually has like, things laid out and how to remove a member from a board. If it's not laid out in bylaws, and there has to be like, actually like a trial. And I think it's 3/4 of voting members have to vote for a removal. So like basically the person gets their day in court.
So that's what we would go by then, Robert's Rules of Order. for
Yeah,
that.
and I mean, and the thing is like, that's where I really, I struggle with like the signing of it, because like, I really see this as, and I've been involved in code of conducts with other, organizations. And, they're nice as like a guideline and things like that, but from like a teeth standpoint, you really have to have, people that have like the wherewithal to actually like enforce it. And in a lot of ways, they're very subjective. Cause like I might read one of these sentences or stanzas far differently than another board member. And so for me, this is more of an opportunity for us to have conversations as a board and to help guide those conversations and engage with one another when we think that, hey, I think we might need to take into consideration our code of conduct here, or like our, to where like this is like a guiding document of, and if we can all agree to it, then it's a document that we can look at as, okay, when I'm approaching this given issue on the agenda, I need to take all of these things into consideration. And if I can sleep well at night, knowing that like I have followed these in like my heart of hearts, I think that's one piece of this. But then the other piece of it is like, if someone is really in violation of this, we have to be willing to call each other out on it. And I don't know if signing it really ultimately matters, if it's something that we accept as like a guiding document of this board. That's just my opinion.
Completely agree with that. It'll be part of our bylaws, correct? We're going with.
Yeah, so if we're incorporating it into the bylaws, then, yeah,
And so we're
Sure.
agreeing that to be on the board, so that would be where I agree.
Yeah.
I would be for scratching the second page and as written on this one with the changes. Marcus, is that it?
Yes.
so is it a second? Marcus, we had a motion on the floor from Marcus, to accept with the changes.
I think we had to add with scratching the second page, cause that wasn't included.
Oh, sure, okay. Would you make that amendment to your motion?
I amend my motion to remove the signature page as well.
And then was that a second?
And then that's a second.
Any further discussion? So the motion on the table is for approval of the code of conduct with the changes as presented in the January minutes, as well as the changes today with the addition of the scratch of the second page for signatures. Any discussion?